My friend's mother-in-law tried to steal the spotlight, so I spilled wine on her dress. Buckle up, folks. This is a wild ride where I did the thing that got me banned from all her family gatherings, plus a few threats of dismemberment and bodily harm. A close friend of mine from university was tying the knot. They had been together since junior year of college, throughout her 2-year stint in the Peace Corps, and upon her return to this continent. 6 years total. She attended many family events and always returned with odd stories about how she suspected her mother-in-law secretly despised her. But being a very reserved and kind-hearted person, she pushed those feelings aside. Point 1. She's vegetarian and Jewish, while her husband is not. She was invited to Christmas dinner and planned to eat side dishes, also bringing a vegetarian casserole. Despite knowing her for 3 years and being reminded by her husband a few weeks before not to overlook the fact that Friend doesn't eat meat, the Emil still put meat in every dish. Friend drank water and ate her casserole all night, while Mill complained to everyone about how rude Friend was for refusing her cooking. Anyway, back to the main story. A few friends and I were asked to be part of the wedding. Friend has a massive family, so it wasn't going to be a small gathering. Neither of them is very religious, but Friend mentioned it would be nice to be wed under a chuppah. Think of an arbor with 4 poles, draped with a white cloth and many flowers. Her husband said he couldn't care less, and advised her to go ahead and rent one for the ceremony. I was at the bridal shower when Emil discovered that the pretty canopy was actually a chuppah. She nearly lost her composure in front of a group of people, but managed to hold it together and laugh angrily, saying, if the Jews were being represented, so would the Catholics. In my head, I heard a record scratch, folks. They aren't Catholic. So after a lot of fighting, plenty of yelling, crying, and threats to pull money, which is amusing because she hadn't contributed, Mel lost. The boot was firmly placed, and nothing was shifting it. Hoopa yes, Catholic priest no. Things got oddly quiet. My friend texts me the night before the wedding, saying she has a bad feeling. I tell her it's likely just nerves. She's getting married, and it's a big deal. Oh, how wrong I was. We all arrive, get our hair and makeup done, slip into our bridesmaid dresses, and hang out waiting for the bride to finish with her hair. She mentions she hadn't seen Mill all day and that she skipped her hair and makeup appointment. We all gave each other side eyes, took a few sips of wine, and hoped the strange feeling would disappear. 30 minutes later, as we helped the bride into her dress, guess who shows up? If you guessed MIL, you win a cookie. Flushed from coming up the stairs, she is not a light woman, in full hair and makeup, and a white dress. Not ivory, not cream, full snow fucking white. The dress was clearly a wedding dress. It was even from David's bridal, which she would later shout at me. Floor-length satin with a sweetheart beaded top, a bit of a train, and off-white lace at the bottom. The dress was even tailored to her. This has been a long con she orchestrated. The bride burst into tears, and aunts and friends ushered Emil out. We did our best to console the bride, touched up her makeup, and I made her a promise that the dress would never appear in a photo. She looked me in the eye and nodded. The game was on. The venue only provided white wine and champagne for the wedding party. But I grabbed my purse and raced down to the reception area, managing to flag an attendant by the bar and bribing him with a cool $20 to give me a bottle of red early. I cracked the baby open, filled a solo cup to the brim with it, and headed outside. After a couple of swigs from the bottle to gather some courage, I went over to where everyone was preparing for the photos. With one last intense look at my friend, she gave me a nod of approval. I pulled out my phone, held it in front of my face as if I were checking a message, and walked right into Mill. I poured the whole cup of red wine down the front of her dress, jumped back, and gasped. The expression on her face was furious. She screamed, yelled, threatened, and vowed to sue me. People had to hold her back because she wanted to come at me. Eventually, she switched from yelling to sobbing, sank to the ground, and threw a tantrum on the floor. Everyone stepped away and just let her have her moment, then moved on to take photos. It was surreal, as if everyone just reached their limit and decided to leave her behind. The 12-year-old flower girl whipped out her phone and snapped a few photos, much to our amusement. This is already super long, but I'll mention that MIL went home and changed, only 20 minutes from the venue, into a nice dark green dress, which was too small and revealing. Because of this, she missed all of the photos. The wedding was beautiful. I received death glares from everyone she informed that I attacked her with wine. No fucks were given as I drank and danced with friends. The bride thanked me secretly and 3 months later treated me to a spa day for pampering. But I am officially that ISIS cunt to Mill, and I'll embrace it with pride. Edit. You guys are awesome. Someone gave me gold? Wine for all. In all seriousness, I'm glad you all enjoyed this story. I am not a superhero, but I am a woman who has been mistreated a lot because of my ethnicity by this MIL and had zero fucks left to give. Lone Ranger style, my fight or flight response is permanently stuck on fight. The couple has been NC for the last year and a half since the wedding. Edit Dowd to 2. Holy waffles, this blew up. Edit. I'm trying to grant you all your cookies. Also, I'm glad to explain the situation, but the rude "you are lying" messages are not appreciated. And I'm working on those photos. New post, the white dress PSA. Please stop sending me gold. You all are so sweet and amazing. But if you truly want to give, consider sending a donation to the National Domestic Violence Hotline instead and help keep the lines of communication open for everyone. The hotline.org are get involved, donate. You all rock my Technicolor socks. New post. Absolute Easter chaos. It has been about 2 years since the red wedding incident. Going NC from the moment that wedding ended has been absolute bliss for my friends. This past weekend was my friend's birthday, and she thought, why not host a brunch on Easter on her amazing rooftop in the city? So I activated my cooking skills and made my famous vegetarian, crispy, turmeric saffron Persian rice with roasted almonds and pomegranate seeds. Tadig for all my desert brothers and sisters out here. What does this beautiful brunch have to do with my friend's Mile, with whom she's been NC for almost 2 years? I'm happy to share, llamas. Because the woman showed up. I'm not sure whose Facebook she snooped on or what person she pressured, but she traveled from out of state and appeared at the front door of their apartment building. I'll rewind just a bit. My friend and I are setting up on the roof, placing pillows on the outdoor furniture and spreading some linens on the tables. Their apartment building is only 4 stories high. They live on the top floor and have the only apartment with roof access. Since we weren't sure if people would hear the buzzer inside the apartment, we put a sign for folks to ring the bell and give a shout up to the roof, or text, and we would buzz them in. So I'm wandering around fluffing pillows while holding my mimosa when I hear someone yelling. I assumed someone arrived early, and my friend went to lean over the roof edge to see who it was. She immediately jerked back and turned to face me. "It's name redacted," she yelled as she dashed back to the apartment to prevent the hubs from accidentally buzzing her in. I glanced over the roof and observed her for a while. She was pacing, panicking, and tugging the door handle. She must have hit the buzzer around 10 times, then looked up and saw me. She appeared furious. She flipped me off and went back to trying to yank the handle, shouting something about wanting to give her baby his Easter basket. The woman seemed unstable. Indeed, she was holding one of those drugstore giant plastic green baskets filled with junk so high it was wrapped in plastic. So I did what any sensible person would do. Just stayed put and sipped my mimosa while watching her lose her mind, occasionally glance up at me and shake her fist. My friend returned with her husband, and he peeked over to see her pacing like a crazed hyena in front of the door. As people would start arriving soon, they were concerned she might force her way in with others. I posted a quick summary on the Facebook group about what was going on so people knew what they might encounter. Mill then had a clever notion. She buzzed every other apartment, hoping someone would let her in while she continued calling out for her son, who by this point was hiding on the roof drinking directly from a bottle of champagne. Someone did let her in. She stormed into the building, and at that moment, my friend's husband pulled out his phone and called 911. He said, and I quote, "My unstable mother I haven't spoken to in 2 years traveled across the country and showed up at my apartment screaming. She broke into the building, and we are scared she is a danger to us and herself. We live XXX. I'm pretty certain that by the time I have bad knees and a thyroid problem, lady made it up to the 4th floor. The cops were pulling up. She never made it inside the apartment. When the police confronted her, she turned sickeningly sweet, begging them as she fake cried to see her child. She attempted to get the officers on her side to persuade him to go with her. The officers were having none of it and asked if she was invited or knew she was trespassing. Her husband came out and told them he wanted her to leave. This is when everything escalated. She lunged at her son, threw the basket at the officers, and tried to drag her husband down the stairs. When he pulled away, she decided to dash for it. An officer grabbed her arm as she started down the stairs, which threw her off balance, and she went tumbling down a flight of stairs with the officer. Plastic toys, candy, and that crinkly cellophane stuff were scattered all over the hallway and down the stairs. Watching her being handcuffed face down in all of it was quite amusing. My friend and I sipped our mimosas from the top of the rail. Trespassing, assaulting an officer, and 2 additional charges are pending. It was a wonderful brunch though. New post, Red Wine Girl and the Adventures with Crazy Bitch. Alright, party people, this crazy bitch Mile needs a name since she apparently isn't going anywhere. I am writing on behalf of my ultimate bestie who is Reddit and computer illiterate. Bitchbot will let you in on the juicy details, but yes, I am that red wine bitch. Anyway, so I guess you are all wondering why I called you here. When we last left off, crazy bitch Mile was booked for assault on Easter Sunday after showing up from a few states away and 2 years of NC. She did not post bail and sat in jail until her court date a few days ago, during which a sympathetic judge ignored testimony from the son and the police officer. Her charges were reduced, and she was let go after having to pay a pretty hefty trespassing fee and being told she had to keep her nose clean for a year. So she then recognized the error of her ways and skipped home. Yeah, fucking. Right, let me set the scene. Mother's Day, 2018. Sunny, warm, with a touch of ocean breeze to make the weather perfect. Friend's mother lives far away, so they chose to join our friend group at an outdoor event with sunshine, music, picnic food, and booze. We all had an amazing time on my side of the pond. They left to head home, and a few hours later I got a very unsettling phone call from friend. Apparently, crazy bitch Mel was watching their apartment. She rented a studio just a block away and conveniently happened to run into them when they were coming home. She was apparently upset that her son didn't call her for Mother's Day and wanted to inform him she had officially moved here. Even though she literally owns a house in another state, she decided to rent an apartment in one of the priciest cities in the country. Friend is troubled and husband is in shock. He started paperwork for a restraining order and they got a Ring camera just just in case. I invited them to stay at my place because apparently, when friend left for work on Monday and Tuesday mornings, she saw crazy bitch Mill sitting in the cafe across the street reading the newspaper. Husband has been working from home and trying to figure out alternative ways out of his building. He called some other cousins, aunts, and uncles and informed them about what was happening. They are apparently not surprised. She had been planning this sudden move for years, spoke continuously about her son and me, but never mentioned friend beyond making a face at her name. They never imagined she would actually follow through with it, and said she disappeared a week before Easter, never showed up to the family dinner. Bitch Mill is stalking me. Awesome. I expect 2 Homeland Security guys at my door soon enough. Sigh. Friend and husband are coming over tomorrow to stay for who knows how long. They informed their landlord, who is at least taking the issue seriously, and distributed flyers to other residents with her name and photo, saying she was prohibited from the premises. He is also going to monitor the camera footage by the main entrance to ensure she doesn't sneak in with deliveries. He's a great person. I'm planning to send him some cookies. There you have it. I'm getting ready for visitors and possibly a cash me outside situation with crazy bitch Mill. New post, red wine, Ramadan, and the pork chop. If you've been keeping up with the antics so far, you're aware that red wine, thanks for the name U. Clummer, the eccentric Emile, resurfaced after about 2 years of no contact to metaphorically throw sugar into my friend's life. Friend and husband spent a few quiet days at my house across the pond and eventually returned last Sunday. They've been using a back exit provided by their landlord to come and go. For a little update, the restraining order paperwork is filed, and family has been notified to bring her back to Chaos Land, and now we just wait. I appreciate all the comments here and those who offered practical advice. My friend and her husband took a lot of it to heart. My juicy, hilarious, and absolutely amazing tidbit for all of you actually involves me. God, I hate love this woman. It's Ramadan, and I'm dedicated to fasting, having bizarre fried chicken dreams. Yesterday, I crossed the pond for an iftar party, which is when we can eat after sunset. 2 other people and I were headed to the party, and I waited on the corner near my friend's apartment building. We chatted, shared some memes, and waited for them to join us. Out of nowhere, I feel a tap on my shoulder. When I turn around, a fried pork chop is just inches from my face. It's basically a sail on my nose. Confusion. More confusion. Sudden realization that red wine was standing there brandishing a pork chop at me. She then starts waving the pork chop. You think you can just corrupt my son? This country? She pointed the pork chop at me while the 2 friends with me started giggling behind me. Just for context, they are 2 hijabis, kind of a slang term we use for young fashionable women in hijab, and I am not. I'm the person with waist-length, wild, curly hair that looks like it's trying to consume my head. I pointed at the pork chop and asked why she had it. She replied that she was waiting for me. Ugh, guys, there's definitely a leak somewhere. She knew about the time of the iftar celebration and was wandering around trying to locate us with a damn pork chop. Hijabi 1 asked Red Wine if she planned to eat it because she was famished, which seemed to upset her since she shouted that she knew we didn't consume pork. At this point, I'm dying. I have that ridiculous face where I'm trying not to laugh but also not breathing. My friend and her husband come running up as she's preaching to my hijabi friends about their own faith. Something, Trump, deported, and wrath of God for non-believers. You have to take this nonsense with a grain of salt. The husband steps between us, yelling at Red Wine to leave, and we all make a quick getaway down the street. I'm walking backward, observing her waving this pork chop around and pointing it in her son's face. Finally, I just can't contain it and burst into laughter. A full belly, absolutely uncontrollable laugh. She aims the pork chop over his shoulder at me and whines that he is associating with terrorists and she can keep him safe. Apparently, with her pork chop sword, the husband takes out his phone and says he's calling the police, and like smoke, she vanishes in the opposite direction. Glorious. Apparently, she was telling him to accompany her back home, claiming her sister was coming to rescue them, her, from our city of sin and terrorists. We sat at dinner, filled ourselves up, and entertained the other guests with stories about Red Wine, the eccentric woman who tried to drive us away like vampires with a pork cross. New post. Rejoice, pork chop wielding army. Red Wine has left town. This update is intriguing. My friend's husband called me a few days ago to genuinely apologize for what happened, for the 100th time. He told me that the very next day, she appeared at his place and snuck in with the postmaster. He returned home from work to discover her on his floor, a hysterical mess. Mascara ran down her face, her hair was dirty and wild, and her lipstick was smeared. He found out then that she hadn't been paying rent for a place to stay here and had instead been living in a pay-by-the-week motel, which she hadn't paid for in a while and got kicked out. She was broke, homeless, and firmly convinced that terrorists were after her. Without hesitation, he called 911 and she was taken into custody. He then contacted as many family members as he could, informing them she had a psychotic break and someone needed to come get her. Only her sister showed up the next day and finally took her home. But she does have to come back in 3 months for her hearing for not keeping her goddamn nose clean. Harassment and stalking charges. But the judge granted the RO this time. Glory. Praise be, we have appeased the wine gods. He has only caught fragments from relatives, but she appears to be completely losing it. She's been telling anyone who listens that her visit to our city was amazing. She enjoyed such a wonderful time. She spent much time with her son, bonding, but the city was just too crowded, and noisy, and intimidating, so she simply had to leave. And apparently, one day soon, her son, according to her, is going to come home too. Haha. No way. They enhanced security measures and have resumed some level of normalcy. I feel terrible for my friend and her spouse, as there's a part of me that's concerned this woman will never leave them alone until she's passed or incarcerated. Hopefully, her sibling can do a better job of keeping her in their state.